Hey folks, back with a follow-up to last month's video about short-term rentals in Sevierville. We have available data now for both for a complete month of May and June, and the year over years, as I mentioned, are not as bad. Now, the numbers that Nick Gurley used to generate this 47.6% drop, as he stated, were 3-month averages of the available revenue per listing. Okay. And so what it appears, the only way I've been able to replicate anything close to the numbers he generated was if I backdate to March 2022. So I go from March 22, April 2022, May 22, and compare that to the March, April, May of 2023. But if you'll remember from my first video, specifically the data source that he used, AlltheRooms, as compared to all the other available analytics sites for Airbnb revenue, has a extraordinarily unusual spike in March 2022. In fact, this is a little nuts. So if you compare March 2022 to March 2023, using AlltheRooms data, there's actually a 62.3% drop. It's my belief that that number specifically wasn't used because it really strains it really strains belief, right? So if we do year over year, month to month, which is much more common way of expressing these things than a 3-month average, May has a 29.6% reduction, again, on all of the rooms data. And then June has a 25.5% reduction. July originally thought it was tracking lower, but turns out their data only captures through July 25th. So we got 6 days of missing revenue, including a weekend, to get in there. So if that holds, if we get a full month of revenue for July, I think it's actually going to be in that same 25% range. I don't even think that's accurate, right? But at the same time, if you had told me that Sevierville had a 25% AirD drop in income per available listing, I'd find that number at least something we can argue about, right? Something we can have some conversation. You tell me it's half, that's an entirely different angle. I'll show you the graph here just to prove out my numbers. All right, here you go. So here's our full graph. And again, we are on revenues. Here's that March I was talking about. Look at that, 93.54 at average revenue. That's insane, right? And then if we track over here to March 35.23, that's just not real, folks. It's not. A 2/3 drop in income would be apocalyptic. We would have heard about it, right? We work with many STR investors. If there were that severe of a drop in revenue, there would indeed be a fire sale in Sevierville, and it's just not there. It's not happening. Are some operators struggling? Absolutely. If you bought anywhere in here, it's going to be a little dicey for you. But at the same time, when we get into these more normalized numbers, yeah, it's believable drops at least. I don't think they're even as high as they are, but it's at least believable. And so what the end takeaway that you get from this is that this viral tweet was spawned from a weirdly contorted way of looking at data from a barely used source of Airbnb and analytics. And when you really break it down, when we actually get the May numbers, when we actually get the June numbers, it's just not that bad. It's not. So at any rate, question your data. Use broad-based accepted sources, and read the sources that people pull their data from. It's not as grim as it's made out to be. It's a little bit hard to explain to folks that aren't here on the ground in East Tennessee what this environment looks like. There's folks that are struggling who made bad purchases. You buy the top of a stock, you're gonna be in some pain. But at the same time, we're not even seeing those folks selling. They're working it out. They're working with trusted advisors. They're working with Airbnb coaches that we have in the area. I mean, it's an incredible community we've got. And to have someone come in and try to drop a bomb on our local real estate community, our local investor community, it's disgusting. And especially when the bomb isn't even close to being backed up by data.